Hello, everyone. Welcome to OPC Day International 2021. My name is Jim Luth. I'm a software architect for Schneider Electric, but I also serve as the CTO of the OPC Foundation, and I chair the OPCUA working group. It's my pleasure to be here today and to present our working group status for the OPCUA working group. So what I'd like to cover today is a brief description of our working group organization and the release status of our 105 release. The OPCUA working group maintains the core specifications for the OPC unified architecture, and I want to talk about our 105 release and what's new in them. And I'll also talk a little bit about how the releases will be a little different going forward, starting with the 105 release. So the organization itself, the OPC UA working group, has been around for many, many years now. And we're currently organized with a main working group that approves and produces all of the output that you see in the forms of specification. But we have several subgroups that work on specific topics, given the specialty nature of those technicalities. So we have the security working group, we have a pub sub prototyping working group, a time-sensitive networking working group, and one concerned with semantic validation. So on the slide here, you see the email addresses of the chairman of the groups, and if you would wish to join any of those groups, you simply send them an email. So OPCUA version 1.05, I'm pleased to announce the first batch of the 105 release has been posted for a member review beginning last month. And this is a long time coming. We have many pages to this multi-part specification now, and we're on a path to get the new release out relatively quickly. So right now, the 12 parts that are out are in for review for a 90-day period, and then hopefully the other parts will follow on a planned quarterly cadence, and eventually we'll get into a well-oiled machine where we release things on a very scheduled basis, but based on the calendar. So here you can see all 22 parts that are expected to be part of version 105 of OPCUA. The highlighted ones are the 12 that are currently out for release candidate review. And again, you can see that we've made a good dent in the entire number of specs, and hopefully the others will follow in the following months. So when we talk about the 105 release, it's largely a maintenance release. And by that, I mean we've taken all of the fixes and changes that were published in form of errata in 104. And of course, we've applied them directly to the 105 documents to make them up to date. We've similarly taken all of the amendments that we produced as part of the 104 release, and we folded those into the 105 parts. So we have a clean specification with all of the bits and pieces in it that have been previously published. In addition to what's previously been published, we do often, or I should say, we clarify things. Could be text that has changed slightly to aid in understanding. Additional examples have been added in some cases, and this is done just for clarity. These are not technical changes to the document, and oftentimes they're not. All of them are not tracked. However, there are some more significant changes to 105 that I want to call your attention to. So first of all, some of the Part 5 information models that we had often in appendixes in Part 5 have been broken out, and they now have their own parts. So specifically, state machine, file transfer, role-based security, and dictionary reference now are located in their own parts. And instead of being annexes to Part 5. The content is the same. These were all published either in Part 5 or in amendments to Part 5 in 104, and now they have their own parts. Another new feature is the safety specification, Part 15, that was previously published, now has support for PubSub. And this is sort of a major addition to the safety support in allowing the PubSub. And this, of course, supports our field level communication activity around safety. And lastly, we've added conformance units to all of the defined nodes, and I'll talk about that a little more in a little more depth to explain what I mean by that. So, in servers, prior to version 105, OPC UA servers were expected and required to expose all of the nodes defined in the UA namespace, what's known as namespace 0, um, in their address space. So the everything that's in the node set file that's part of namespace 0 would be present in a server. And however, if you think about all of the technology that's exposed by the OPC UA based specs, we have alarms and events, data access, historical access, we have programs and state machines and complex data types and many functionalities that in reality most servers only implement a small fraction of all of the nodes and namespace information that we provide in OPC UA specifications. So in version 105, we've introduced this new feature that allows the ability for a server to only expose nodes, type nodes mostly, but nodes in general, that they actually use and support based on the profiles that they support in their products. So if you remember, the conformance testing in OPC UA is done with a notion where we have a high level thing called profiles, and profiles can contain other profiles and smaller pieces called facets. And all profiles and facets effectively collect together a series of conformance units. And a conformance unit is a testable thing that tests one thing that is required for that profile. So the collection of conformance units is what you have to conform to meet the certification process. So in 105, we have this ability to subset the nodes in the address space to be a subset of those that are in the node set file based on the actual functionality that is included in your server. We've added this feature by including a new heading in a new row in each of the node definition tables in all of our specifications to indicate the exact conformance unit that will test the functionality of having that particular node in the address space. So in this case, I've taken an example of a 3D vector type defined in part 5, and you can see this now specifies that the conformance unit that would require the 3D vector type to appear in a server's address space is called base info spatial data. And that particular conformance unit will test the 3D vector and a few other of these spatial data types. But the point is that if you are not attempting to support and conform to a profile that includes the base info spatial data conformance unit, you do not have to have the 3D vector type in your address space. And so we have added this information to every single node definition table in all of the OPC UA 1.05 specifications. And so, and this of course begins in part 5. You see many of these types, like this one is from part 5, but of course part 8 and 9 and 12 and 13, 14 and so forth, all of the other follow-on parts, most of the all follow-on parts include node definitions, and they will now all have this particular information in them. Now this new feature and the ability to optimize a server by only including the subset of nodes required for that are actually going to be used in the server is in fact backwards compatible, because of course it's never wrong to have nodes in the address space that you don't otherwise use. So any 104 server, as an example, that currently or continues to expose the entire address space is not incorrect. However, going forward, you'll find 105 servers that will only have nodes in the address space that conform to their actual functionality. So after we begin releasing formally the 105 releases, there are changes that we're making to how we do releases, what we do for when we add functionality and so forth. So as part of this process, we're eliminating what we used to publish as errata and amendments. We used to publish uh, corrections to specifications in a separate document called errata, and we used to publish uh, enhancements and new functionality to parts as amendments. And we're eliminating both of those going forward, starting with version 105. So you'll see new parts come in anytime in the process. You'll see existing parts with either what would have been errata or amendment functionality be released with the added functions right away. So even though we've just released 105.0, I'll pick on an example in part 5, there could be a 105.1 version of part 5 that comes out in 3 months. And again, we're eliminating these other parts of other types of documents and updating the actual specs much more frequently than the past. Um, there's no real change in how often we're releasing technology, how often we're releasing fixes. There's no change in how version numbers get assigned with the node sets and so forth. It's just a simplified process where we just deal with the actual documents, publish them more frequently, and we have the online reference that will now always match the latest released versions of the specifications. So that's it. I want to thank you for joining us today, and I wish you to have a good time with the rest of the presentations. Thank you and goodbye.